What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fitness Stuff for Normal People podcast. I'm Mariana, here today, as always, with Tony. It is no secret the fitness industry sucks, period. Whether it's the corrupt multi-billion-dollar supplement and weight loss industry or the endless supply of influencers promoting anything to drive page views. The bottom line is we're not trying to provide just another fitness podcast, but completely change the fitness industry for the better by providing you with the knowledge and tools to give you confidence in applying the best possible training and nutrition into your life. And today we are going to be discussing the much awaited, I'm very excited for this one.
Hot.
Ozempic, a very popular weight loss drug now, but also formerly known for being a type 2 diabetes medication. So we're going to dive into what exactly Ozempic is, how it works for diabetes management and weight loss. Is Ozempic a good strategy for long-term weight loss? What happens when you go off of Ozempic? And weight loss strategies for those who can't get their hands on the drug or are maybe concerned about taking it.
This is that Hollywood inside.
I'm excited. Before that, as a friendly reminder, the show's free, always will be free, but we'd like to remind you guys the easiest way to support us is to leave a 5-star review. So many of you have on Spotify, 1,300 of you have, and we're so appreciative of it. You could do this over on Apple or any streaming platform as well. It's one of the best ways you can support us so we can reach as many people as possible.
I don't think you guys realize that me and Mariana text each other like twice a week. Be like, oh my gosh, did you see? We just got 13. We just got this. We just got that. So thank y'all. Well, and seriously, thank y'all. Because again, like we said, this is a super small production. Me, Mariana, Reagan. We don't have a super high value production team, marketing team, all this stuff. So those 5-star reviews really, really help. Aside from that, if you really like the research aspect that we bring into each and every episode, make sure you join us over on the premium membership in the Fitness Stuff Research Review, where we actually just put out, if you want to check it out, this past Friday's issue on our regular Spotify or Apple feed. So even if you're not a premium member, you can go check out what the research review actually looks like. And that way you're getting double the content each week. We got our normal podcast going out Mondays, and we got the research review going out to premium members on Friday. On top of that, we got the Ask Me Anything episodes each and every month where we get to break down and answer all your questions, access to special discounts with people like Merrick Health for blood work and testing, Examine Plus, and so much more. And your first month is always $5. It's 50% off normal if you want to check it out. And again, we just posted it. It should be right behind line this in our feed, the last research review, if you want to check that out. And before we jump into this episode, a quick shout out from our sponsor, Legion Athletics. I'm going to be honest, Mariana and I are still recovering from the episode we had Mike Matthews on the other week, where we were going down into some of the gnarly things that happen behind closed doors in the supplement industry. If you haven't listened, go check it out. And for those unfamiliar, Mike Matthews is the CEO of Legion Athletics. It's the #1 all-natural sports supplement brand in the world. We rave about them. They're one of the biggest companies that we use and support, along with many other super, super well ethically balanced companies like Thorne, like Pure. Legion's really at the top of the list with us too. And if you listen to that podcast, you'll get a pretty clear understanding why. They have a massive scientific review board. Every article, podcast, video they produce is vetted by a team of MDs, PhDs, and other professionals. And their supplements. This is my favorite part about talking about Mike, or talking with Mike, is he only made the supplements that he made because he saw a massive gap of where one wasn't being made in the industry. He wasn't like another company of just bottling and packaging another BCAA, just another protein, just another this. He wanted to take the quality a step further with each product, which I don't know. I just really like when people kind of create like that. So that's what he kind of did. And that's another reason why we love so many of their products. The whey protein is the one that I think we talk about the most. Again, it's whey isolating out. So it's lactose free, so much easier on digestion. And I actually want to try the plant whey combo he was talking about.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that for the texture differences, but we use them, their creatine, and several other their products. You can get those for 20% off your first order using code FSPOD, FSPOD at checkout. And we'll put the link in the description below if you want to check out Intro. Now, today, I kind of don't want to lollygag because I've been interested in this in a while. I know Mariana's been talking about it longer than I have. Ozempic. This is the thing that Hollywood is on fire with. Is this pretty much the drug people use where if you see them drop, what did Kim K drop? Like 14 pounds in 2 weeks?
Who knows what the Kardashians are doing? Like, they are so hush-hush about anything, and just, I mean, their BBLs are gone now, but they won't talk about it. And they're...
Where'd they go?
And then these are also people who do have access to the top trainers, nutrition. But who is it? Why do I keep forgetting his name?
Elon Musk. Freaking man.
He
Elon
did come
Musk.
out in an interview. He's one of the few celebrities that spoke and was open about taking Wegovy for weight loss, and like talking about how he's not the only one. And there have been a few doctors in popular areas like LA and New York City who have been speaking out about its mass distribution and also abuse with under the table prescriptions. So,
this is the one for people unfamiliar with the term Ozempic. You might have heard of Semiglutide, which you're going to cover. But this is the quote unquote Hollywood weight loss magic pill, right?
Yeah.
So for people unaware, this is why we're talking about it, is because it's become, I mean, its virality is huge.
Yeah.
I think I was even searching on the internet. There's over, I think, 300 million video views just under that search.
Yeah. And it shouldn't be the Hollywood weight loss drug. It should be known for being a revolutionary drug for type 2 diabetics. So that's also what we're going to bring light to. It's honestly crazy how much these topics spread like wildfire. Losing weight is never going to go out of style. I know people will go in and out about how, you know, being thin is in now, and it's never went out. It's just the waves in which people normalize talking about it, or will cover up that people want to be thin. They just get more strategic about their strategies. It's weird. I posted a TikTok on it, and it got like 1.7 million views, and had a bunch of people trying to get me to be in like Yahoo News so they could share my TikTok to be in ABC News. I'm like, what? Why? Who's going to be writing this? It's just people who want to bring attention to it because they know it's hot. So
it is hot. So it's the Hollywood weight loss pill, but what is Ozempic? Like more specifically from this magic fairy tale pill. Like what is it?
Yeah. So the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, first approved the injectable medication for treating diabetes back in 2017. So Ozempic's active ingredient semiglutide belongs to a class of drugs called glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists. GLP-1 is what we will refer them to throughout the duration of this episode.
GLP-1, got it.
But then this was approved with a higher dose of the active ingredient semiglutide to treat obesity in 2021 under the brand name Wegovy. This was in 2021. In 2022, some of the restrictions and regulations in terms of who could get access to this were changed a bit, but Ozempic and Wegovy are essentially the same medication, just available in different doses. So while Ozempic is typically covered by insurance, often Wegovy is not. And again, Wegovy is the very popular weight loss medication. So just Ozempic has semiglutide in smaller amounts, and that's what is typically for people with type 2 diabetes. And it can be used by adults with a BMI, body mass index, greater than or equal to 30 alone, or 27 with at least one weight-related condition. So like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes.
That's for Wegovy. If you wanted to get Wegovy, you'd have to be either above a BMI of 30 or just under with another addition in there. Which, okay, we were talking about before too. 30 is not that high as far as like a BMI standard. I'm a fairly lean individual. I have a BMI of 29.
Yeah.
I have a BMI of 29. I'm like 6. What? I guess BMI doesn't even have to do with height. Right. Yes. But I'm about 225 pounds. Oh, it does. I'm 6'3", and that puts me at a BMI of 29, which is nearly obese. I could almost walk down and get this prescribed for myself. It's not super far out of reach, it seems like.
Yeah, that's classified, right? 29 is over in the overweight category. It's just a terrible metric to use. But
in this day,
yeah. So it's also approved for chronic weight management in adolescents aged 12 and older, and eligibility is based on having an initial BMI at or above the 95th percentile for sex and age. But there's also, again, when you're talking about anything with adolescents, there's a lot more hoops to jump through, and a lot more that is not really openly discussed about how difficult it actually is for children to get this. So a lot stricter, but still that definitely could change in the future. But it is indicated as an adjunct to diet and exercise to improve glycemic control in adults with type 2 diabetes. And this goes for weight loss as well. That is the prescription. It has to be noted. Someone has to say it, and it will also say so in like any of their packaging, like an adjunct to diet and exercise that is recommended. Recommended doesn't mean that happens.
I feel like people just so happen to leave that part out when they talk about it most of the time.
Diet and exercise are important for a variety of health reasons, but we'll dive way deeper into just how important it is to not underestimate that recommendation if you are going on this drug, especially for weight loss. So it's not just this magic pill, although it is starting to be abused as such. That means you can ignore all other aspects that are important for weight management, unless you want to be on it forever.
I want to understand a little bit more how it works, the mechanism behind it, because especially going into, I'm assuming the beginning piece about GLP-1, which I don't know what that is. A lot of people, I don't think, know what that was, just kind of like English. Explain it to me like I'm 5. But I want to ask, do you think it'd be a better place to start? How does it work in its intended use? So let's start with just diabetics. Type 2 diabetics is who the medication was made for. How does it work for them? And then I want you to show like how did it get turned into a weight loss drug for non-diabetics?
Yeah.
Do those kind of mechanisms still play? So how does that work for type 2s?
Yeah. So for type 2 diabetics, first, a quick little brief educational lesson on how insulin and glucagon work. These are 2 hormones, and it's important to understand them if you want to understand the action of GLP-1. But glucagon keeps blood glucose from dropping too low. Insulin is produced to keep blood glucose from rising too high. These 2 hormones counterbalance each other to stabilize blood glucose. And that's a very shortened, condensed, simplified version. And what Ozempic does is it actually mimics this GLP-1. It activates GLP-1 receptors, which help regulate blood glucose through a variety of different mechanisms.
Okay.
That question's there? Or
no, keep going. I got it so far. I got us to go far. Keep going.
Okay. So this stimulates insulin secretion and lowers glucagon secretion, both in a glucose-dependent manner. So again, this is so important for type 2 diabetes who, again, struggle to bring down their glucose levels, suffer from elevated blood glucose. And this is really very, very helpful so that they can bring their glucose levels back down to a normal range. When blood
So it's helping their body, real quick, sorry, just to ask and interject real quick. So does it help, it helps them produce their own insulin better and use their own insulin better? Okay.
Yep.
Because for those wondering too, because I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I think we've talked about this several times. Type 1 and type 2 are very different. I really think they should almost have 2 different names to them and not just type 1 and type 2, because usually they get lumped in as one. I think 95% of diabetics are type 2. And type 1 is more just genetic based. You don't have a choice. It's in your genes. You're going to get it at some point or another. That is where a type 1, like myself, no longer produces insulin, right? It was an autoimmune disease, attacked my pancreas, said, hey, you're not making this anymore. Type 2s, and where I'm thinking this is what it looks like is helping, they either have an insulin resistance, like their cell has a resistance to insulin, it's not able to use its own body, or it's not using it or pumping it out as effectively. So this seems like it's helping improve that function, right? Okay.
It helps stimulate the secretion of insulin, which is something that people, type 2 diabetics, struggle to do or don't do in a regular manner. Typically, people who non-diabetics, after a meal, their beta cells will release, the beta cells, Beta cells will release insulin, and this will help bring blood glucose levels down. So type 2 diabetics, they could have a delayed response there. So that can keep your blood glucose levels elevated for prolonged periods of time. They may not secrete sufficient amounts of insulin to even bring their blood glucose down in the first place. And this helps regulate that. So that is huge.
Massive.
Yeah. So when blood glucose is high, insulin secretion is stimulated and glucagon secretion is inhibited. So it basically allows your body to perform in the manner it is supposed to. The mechanism of blood glucose lowering also involves a minor delay in gastric emptying, which I'll explain more on the weight loss aspect of things. And the improved insulin sensitivity, so that's like the main mode of action for diabetics here, that is the most helpful, is likely to be mediated also by an overall reduction in body weight. So I'll explain that next, but it's important to have that foundation first. And also I want to emphasize this drug is so incredibly powerful and important for type 2 diabetics and has been changing people's lives. And I don't want to discount that. I don't want anyone to take that the wrong way. Unfortunately, because of the rise in its use and abuse as a weight loss drug, access to this is very difficult for type 2 diabetics. And there's also issues with production on the pharmaceutical end. Why is it so easy for people who actually shouldn't be getting this drug for weight loss to get it? That's with any sort of drug abuse. That's a problem that Tony and I can't solve, but it's important to spread awareness about.
Yeah, but the FDA declared a shortage. Was this last year or the year before? I think it was last year.
End of last year. Yeah.
They declared a shortage, which it stinks when you see this kind of stuff because we'll talk about there's uses for weight loss drugs if you're a non-diabetic. But I think why this medication was so huge for diabetics too is, and people listening might have heard of a drug called like metformin. I think that was the leading type 2 diabetic medication that most people have heard of, which also can aid in weight loss a little bit with appetite suppressant, but usually it just does two of the things that you described above. Helps with insulin sensitivity and glucagon. And that helps lower your blood glucose, but your weight doesn't change all too much with metformin. I think this was such a huge one because it did that on one side, but it also helped you rapidly lower your body weight, which we've talked about this in countless episodes, how many metabolic markers improve simply by just losing weight, no matter how you do it. If it's through different dieting methods, just a normal drawn out calorie deficit, if it's a keto diet, if it's a low carb, high carb, you name it, if you lower your body fat and if you lower your weight, you're usually going to see improved metrics. And for type 2 diabetics, being obese and overweight is one of the main predictors of that. That's one of the things that leads to that. So it's not just solving the problem, it's solving the cause in the first place too. So I think that's why this was so big for type 2 diabetics, right? It was solving both the cause and the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's huge. And the biggest part of that is because of its mimicking of this GLP-1. So in understanding now, how does this work for weight loss? You'll see a little bit of overlap here, but this is pretty, I think, incredible. I think it's cool to learn about how a drug can actually mimic hormone in our body. So GLP-1 is an incretin hormone. It plays a role in your appetite and digestion. So GLP-1 acts on both the brain and digestive system to regulate how full you feel after a meal. It also regulates insulin secretion in response to eating meals, like I said before, so your blood sugar is better controlled. And it affects the hunger centers in your brain, specifically the hypothalamus, reducing hunger, appetite, cravings. It's one piece, and it also slows the rate of gastric emptying, stomach emptying, which I mentioned before, which effectively prolongs the feeling of fullness and satiety after a meal. Ozempic mimics that action. Glutide, which is the active ingredient, the main ingredient we'd be talking about, that is huge.
That's the biggest thing people struggle with when trying to make behavior change and lose weight.
Yeah, you have the hunger at play, especially if you're in an energy deficit. It's natural for your body to feel more hungry because you're depriving it of a little bit of energy. Also, if you're improving your diet at the same time and you're used to eating a lot of highly palatable ultra-processed foods, your brain is going to be craving them. Or even if you weren't, like, you naturally crave those foods sometimes. Some people are able to kind of not respond to those cravings. Some people just do over time and it's become habitual. That hunger piece, and that's why I always say it's not a matter of willpower. It really isn't. Some people are able to have more discipline than others, and there's so many reasons for that. Some people's hunger cues are a lot more powerful than others. There's so many things that play into it, but this hunger piece is huge.
Yeah, you can't. We've said that 100 times. You can't beat hunger on the show, right? You can't beat hunger. But what's interesting about this to me, and this is from what I was more reading anecdotally about this, but what you were mentioning beforehand too, is it doesn't just change your hunger and fullness, but even the pathways that have to do with cravings and appetite too. Correct? It's almost like that hedonic, because we were talking about this. I can be full after a dinner. I might have a very nice, what you'd quote unquote, like people are like, oh, that's such a clean dinner, right? I might have some nice steak and rice and grilled peppers, whatever it is. And I could be stuffed. But if I see a chocolate chip cookie, I love chocolate. Like, I'm still going to want that cookie, even though I'm full. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just a fullness scale, but people still deal with these cravings and this reward profile. Because yeah, you have a biological response to be hungry if you're in a deficit.
Yeah.
So that paired with this craving, but that's where this is kind of different too, right? It doesn't just tell you you're full. You don't want the cookie, right?
Yeah. And just one of the side effects of semiglutide is it can change your taste preferences, and it can change how you taste foods. A lot of people will, again, self-report. So this isn't like a RCT that compared people's taste preferences, but there have been a lot of self-reporting within these studies about people feeling repulsed by food. So that's why it's listed in the side effects list. And that is a negative side effect. I mean, being repulsed by food, you still need to eat.
That is wild.
That's a tough piece that I feel like also is not talked about enough, because again, I mean, if you go in with the assumption, yeah, I have to take this forever, this is what I'm taking forever. And for some diabetics, again, duration, I'm not a doctor, that's not my specialty. So I know that is something you figure out with your doctor, and you go through the course of how long you're going to take it for, if you end up switching to a different medication. But for the most part, until you get your blood glucose under control, like, it's something you're taking for a long period of time. For weight loss, it's not recommended to be taken forever, but in order to see the effects of it, you would have to take it forever. So before we talk about that, why that is, I think, I mean, you hear so much about this drug. It's kind of nice to have any solid proof of, okay, but how effective is it?
Does it work like really well? Does it really, really work?
Yeah. So, and this is for weight loss specifically. I mean, for diabetes, yes, absolutely. It has been known for years now, even before 2017. It has been extensively studied. And then also, Tony and I are not specialists. Tony has his type 1 diabetes.
We're not endocrinologists.
But we did want to explain kind of, I mean, it's so important to have that conversation about how important it is for people with type 2 diabetes. But in terms of the effectiveness for weight loss, especially because this is so popular right now, short answer, yes. I mean, you probably already got that from our explanation. But this has been extensively studied. For FDA approval, I know a lot of people are like, oh, FDA, like, you support the FDA. They're probably telling you to pay this. Like, you support big pharma, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, but I do support research. And so this is based off of research done. It's not the FDA just pulling this out of the air. So the safety and efficacy for weight loss was studied in 4 68-week trials. The largest clinical trial being in 1,961 adults with excess weight or obesity who did not have diabetes. That's really important that they did studies like this. And that's required in order for it to get FDA approval. You have to have the RCTs in the population of interest. So they were given 2.4 milligrams of semiglutide or a placebo once a week for 68 weeks, along with lifestyle intervention. Both groups received lifestyle interventions. This include exercise, diet, extensive counseling, and they received the same type of treatment, so to say, there. What they found was those who took semiglutide lost 14.9% of their body weight, compared with 2.4% for those who took the placebo. So individuals who received Wegovy lost an average of 12.4% of their initial body weight compared to individuals who received the placebo. So was it more effective?
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it more effective? Like 6 times more effective. Holy cow. And here's the crazy part too, is that's not just nothing. Both groups, from what you said, right? They received counseling and intervention on diet, on training, like over 68 weeks, both groups. So it wasn't just, go about your daily lives, someone take a pill, someone not.
Yeah.
This was with the aim to lose weight as well.
Yeah.
That is not a small difference. Wow.
This adds another layer that I hope people see from this, is how just you're eating, like how much you're eating. Because again, we're talking about the main mechanism of action here is the hunger piece. That is the main reason why people are so easily losing weight and losing a lot of it, is because hunger is almost non-existent and it's very easy to control. Diet is going to go so much further than exercise. You still have to have all of the foundations at play here. But so many times, I feel like it's like beating a dead horse when we try, like Tony and I, or people will try to explain, like, you're probably just eating too, like the reason why you can't lose weight, you might just be eating too many calories. You might not actually be in a calorie deficit. Why that is, not discounting that this is
100%.
way more difficult for some people than others. And also you can have hormonal imbalances playing a role. Like, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's also to think about like what was actually happening here and why is it so much easier with this? Well, their hunger levels were a little bit more at bay.
Yeah.
But also, did these people maybe have some issues in the regulation of producing more hunger hormones, more fullness hormones? Not sure, but maybe we'll be able to understand that a little bit more as this goes on. So,
okay, that's a great point to highlight though, because I think people see this and it's like, oh my gosh, these people weren't taking this drug and just being able to eat whatever they want, drink whatever they want, consume whatever they want, and still lose this much weight. Like you said before, stops you from having an appetite, cravings, and sometimes even disgusts you from food. It's not like it was a magic pill that just goes in and blasts fat cells in your body and defies the laws of thermodynamics. It's not that, but for some reason or another, it's usually just because people are consuming too much food. Like you said, it's a simple concept, not an easy one to implement at all.
Yeah.
Simple. That's really what it came down to.
I'm very curious to see how studies evolve and compare. Leptin and ghrelin are fullness and hunger hormones. And some people may struggle to suppress leptin, which is your fullness hormone, or so what have you. So that is something that could play a huge role here, and maybe understanding let's separate some of these groups of people. Let's maybe look at their hunger hormone production. Why might this have such an impact? At baseline, maybe we compare these individuals to people who are not overweight or obese, because there is an association between leptin production, which is that fullness hormone, and having more lean body mass. So that is something that maybe we'll look into in the future. But again, very much so want to emphasize, this is while you're on the drug. Okay.
I was going to say that's really enticing to a lot of people. Those numbers that you just said, especially with how massive of a difference that was in weight loss, was 14.9% versus 2.4. That's enticing. And I think that's what the news, and that's why this is going viral.
Yeah.
But here's what we do is we say, okay, but what happens next? That's what I want to see, what happens after people stop using this, because it's an injectable thing. Are you going to do this for the rest of your life? And if not, like most people can't, what happens?
Yeah. And we didn't even get it. There's a difference between planning to stop something, slowly going off of a drug with the proper interventions, say for exercise, weight loss. But especially what's happening now is insurance isn't covering this, even just for diabetics. It is very difficult to get your insurance to cover this. So it's upwards of, it could be over $1,000. On average, it's between $900 and $1,000.
That's just for a 1 month supply, right?
Yeah. So that is, people will be taking this and then all of a sudden don't get it anymore. And that's what's been happening, and that's very concerning. But what researchers wanted to do is understand what happens when you do stop using it. What is happening from a weight loss standpoint. And even there have been obviously markers of metabolic health that have been improved, like hemoglobin A1C, cholesterol levels. Are those also are they going to stay improved? Yeah. What's changing? So most people will regain much of the weight they lost while on Wegovy, Ozempic, if they discontinue using it. And that's the conversation that no one wants to have, because again, this is so incredible. It's revolutionary in the field for type 2 diabetics, for people who do really struggle with losing weight. That is not something I want to discount. It's so beneficial for people if they really, really need that help, and it can give them the jump start there from a weight loss standpoint. But we have this abuse and misuse of people who are not prescribed it, who do get access to it. And this isn't new when it comes to drugs. Unfortunately, in America, especially if you have the money for it and you know enough people, getting drugs is not the hardest thing to do, unfortunately. That's a huge problem. That's a whole different rabbit hole. And I wish I had some sort of solution, but you can't leave out that part of things.
Of course.
And in terms of the regulations in the pharmaceutical industry. Where are they with those? I don't know.
Mm.
But a study published in April 2022 examined changes in body weight and cardiometabolic risk factors upon the termination of the drug in participants from the study outlined previously, so that I just mentioned. So this was a follow-up study, and I really love these types of studies that will take a look at the same group of people over time. So after a year of going off of this drug, the people had regained 2/3 of the weight they had lost. Okay? 2/3 of the weight that they had lost. That's a significant amount. And the positive changes they had seen in the cardiometabolic risk factors like blood pressure, blood lipids, hemoglobin A1C, similarly reversed.
So every piece that improved started to be reversed. And that's only 1 year after you stop taking it, right?
Yeah, because this drug is not curing the underlying issues that led to weight gain in the first place.
Yeah.
It's not. And that is something that people really need to understand. And also, I hope people who are prescribing this, unfortunately, this isn't what always happens, but can advocate for their patients and really understand this and let them know this if they are going to take it, give them the resources and point them in the right direction to people who can help them with weight management. If they're not moving or exercising or looking at their nutrition at all, at least point this out and say the importance of it. Do doctors standardly do that? I don't think that that's a standard practice in primary care in the U.S.
Especially with the people who are drugs. Especially the people who are just getting it for weight loss today, causing this shortage. Guessing they're probably not getting it from the best care if it's being so easily thrown out to so many people. I'm guessing they're not getting the best care too. Of, hey, if you don't change your lifestyle, none of this will last. That would just be a guess.
This is a study done in people without diabetes. This is not talking about diabetics. I mean, I cannot speak for someone with type 2 diabetes. I never would try to, but the living with that, like the conversation about food, about exercise, that is nonstop in their brain. Like that is something that people know about. It's commonly discussed, and it's still a matter of, I can't get my blood sugar under control and I need something to help me do that so I can actually make these changes and they can stick. So that's like, we're not discussing that population in this specific piece here. It does leave room for discussion and also concern, because it's like, where are any public health interventions coinciding with this? Okay, we know that this is on the rise. The use of this is on the rise, which can be a very good thing. There's a lot of adverse health effects associated with obesity. But where's the educational piece? Where are people going to discuss this part of things, how important it is to make the proper changes to your lifestyle when you do get off of this?
Yeah. That's the tough part, because it's like, this is easy. 'Cause I'm sure people going into it might actually be prompted to say, hey, you got to change your lifestyle or none of this is going to last.
Yeah.
I think it's easy going into it to be like, yeah, I can do that. I can make those changes. I'll be on the pill and I'll just start to work. I'll start to eat healthier. I'll start to work out more. I'll start to go on more walks. I'm sure it's easy going into it. But I think what might be a tough or challenging piece here is once you're on this pill, it seems like it's such a powerful drug and it has such a large effect that you can start to notice that you're making progress, even if you're not exercising, even if you're not specifically or intentionally taking control of your diet, you're still making progress without all that. So I think that might be what reinforces in their head, what can I get away with and still make progress, until you just realize, like, I don't really need to make too many changes. You go back to your old habits or your same habits that got you there in the first place. And then by the time you come off of it, you realize, oh, I feel great. I look great, but nothing really changed. Nothing really changed.
And that's like what this really is the concerning piece to me of when you think about, because you don't have your brain interfering like you do with a crash diet of like, yeah, you're really hungry, but just push through, You don't have that constant reminder. But what we don't know is, and I'm sure in future years we will see studies on this, but how this affects your control of your hormones once you do go off of it, of your control of your hunger and fullness, your ability to respond to hunger cues when you weren't having them for so long. That is very concerning. I don't know if that's just me who thinks that. And again, this is not to discount the benefits of this for people who genuinely need it for diabetes or to kickstart their weight loss process. But it's just something that's not being talked about. And it's crazy to me how it's not.
It's a little scary if you really think about it. Because again, everyone sees the headline of how much more weight you can lose. I think that's where most people stop to think about it. But this just highlights it so well. If it changes your reward pathways, if it changes your hunger and fullness cues, those biological signals that you are born with.
But temporarily, like only while you're on it.
Yeah,
so it doesn't change it when you go off.
When you go off of it, I'm like, but do we know that it might not have almost like a little swing of not just not affecting them, but almost in the other direction, like making those hunger cues stronger or weaker? You know what I'm saying? We just don't know. Like you said, it's not like a crash diet where you're aware of everything. You're just pushing through it. Mm-hmm. It's like a synthetic blanket that you're getting covered with. That's just going to be yanked from over you, where you don't know what the real world's going to be like after that. You don't know what it's like in this new setting. And so long term, this could be sketchy.
Yeah, this is meant to be taken for life. If you want these benefits, it's meant to be taken for life. I'm saying in air quotes because we don't know yet the effects of taking it for life. But if you want to see these benefits, it's not something that you go off of it and it changes something in your body. No, it covers up what was going on.
It's ignoring the cause of everything. I had a good question on a Q&A I did this week even. There was a question of just simply, how do I fall asleep faster? And it's like most people just think of like, what supplement can I take? Or I should have a drink of alcohol or weed, right? To unnaturally sedate me, right? Like, again, synthetically accomplish what do I want to accomplish instead of saying, why can't I fall asleep at night? Same thing here. It's not looking at the cause of why are these hunger signals so out of whack, or whatever is causing you to be overweight, obese, whatever it is. It covers up the why. This is like that synthetic blanket that covers up, doesn't matter why you're feeling this way. Now it's gone. There's something in your life that's causing that you're just ignoring. And that's, I think, way more valuable information to have than just to ignore it for a short period of time before it slaps you in the face.
And like Tony and I in 20 years could be proven wrong. And there could be a long-term study that comes out and maybe people will be like, yep, this is good. Take it forever. Like totally possible. But I also don't want to discount the other end of the coin here. This is just kind of transition. But for diabetics, how this is life-changing because you do have a group of people who do really struggle with weight loss. A reason for that is because of their blood sugar control and not being able to control their blood sugar, who will genuinely really try to take these interventions and try so many different exercises, try all of the diets, and the hunger piece can really interfere. And because of how they're not able to regulate their blood sugar, people with diabetes, a lot of people are saying, this has actually made me see that I'm capable of doing these things and seeing the weight come off. Yeah. I'm able to continue doing what I was already doing before, but now I'm losing weight. And again, that's the lifestyle intervention plus the drug piece that no one's really talking about.
See it fitting in different scenarios. Like, so for example, type 2 diabetes, it's not like just a thing that you have and it's no big deal. It's like that increases your risk for so many other negative outcomes down the road. Type 2 diabetics, you're probably going to have a higher incidence of cardiovascular disease, of early death, all-cause mortality. All these pieces, type 2 diabetes increases. So this could be a really useful drug outside of type 2 diabetics, where it's not just a person who has no health outcomes, just living in excess, and that's why they are obese, versus a guy who just had a heart attack, who is a walking time bomb because he's obese and all of this is playing a role into it. Prolonging the obesity any longer really is rolling the dice. That's who I think this could really have a profound effect on. There are people who have these things where obesity is really pushing the boundaries or pushing up the timeline of how quickly these negative events kind of hit you. This could be huge for backing off the line versus, again, just a normal person who's just living in excess. Taking this, that's usually where I feel like you just see those bad things pile up long term.
Yeah, this is one of the first extremely effective drugs approved for weight loss, and we're running into a shortage already. Why is that happening? Did you not expect for this to happen? Like, all of the data can show how popular weight loss drugs are and how often they are abused. There's regulations there. I had people commenting, I've been using this drug for 2 years and now it's $1,000 and I can't take it anymore. that's a huge issue. That's also just a huge issue that I think that is just crazy. I wish I could provide a solution.
That one just sucks. That's when it becomes a problem. It's like the people who need this can't get it, because the people who don't really need it, who could use it and benefit from it, but the people who do not need it are taken away from the people who do. That's when it becomes a bigger problem. And I feel like this is only becoming hotter and hotter and hotter. I guess we just got to see how it plays out.
Yeah. So it's also important to discuss the side effects of it, like the negative side effects of it.
What?
Like with any drug.
This isn't a panacea, a silver bullet that solves every problem.
So I want to talk about first the most common ones that are more mild, but can suck, which are nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. So those are the most common side effects, but they should subside after a few weeks of use of the medication. Some people, it doesn't subside, and that's why a lot of people sometimes will discontinue it. And then also gas and indigestion, headaches, dizziness, fatigue. A lot of the fatigue and dizziness attributed to factors just taking a new drug in general, but also the eating significantly less than you were before. And then the more serious ones, every single drug has a huge list of side effects. So this isn't meant to scare people. It's just important to know. Like retinopathy, which is damaged blood vessels in your eyes, gallbladder disease, kidney problems. I think any drug that is involved in the insulin and glucagon, but pancreatitis, which is your swelling of the pancreas. And on the warning label on like these prescription drugs, they must have that they increase the risk of thyroid cancer, which was actually fascinating to me, because for that to actually, it's required for that to be labeled on the bottle, even though this is based off of animals. So Ozempic causes thyroid cancer in animals. It's unclear if it also does so in humans yet. Tony and I are really big on making that distinguishment. If it was definitive that it caused cancer in humans, maybe a little bit of a different story with it being so widely available. So it's just important to know. And of course, there's certain groups of people that are at greater risk, and I'm sure your doctor would discuss that with you. It's not something to just...
It's not just a weight loss pill. It's not just a thing that just helps you lose weight. It's more complicated than that, it seems.
As an individual, you just have to weigh the pros and cons, right? So that's not for anyone to tell you to do. But if you're not taking into account the other adverse health effects that could potentially happen, just seeing the adverse health effects associated with obesity and how losing weight can directly change the course of your risk for cardiovascular disease, all-cause mortality, type 2 diabetes, it would be negligent as a person trained in the health sector to say that obesity is not a problem. That's just clear as day. But I also am not saying it's a problem based off of society standards. And so that's why I get pulled, because it's like, this could be so helpful and is so life-changing for so many people who cannot lose the weight. And that is a piece that then I get torn, because I almost sound like I'm counterintuitive when it's like, but you got to think about, are you going to gain it back? Is it worth it? Are you going to include the lifestyle interventions? Are you going to make any changes to your diet? Is this the best decision for you? And that's for the person to take. But personally, it's odd to even be talking about this, because I never really thought that this would be something so readily available to people that is so effective, right? I don't think so soon, at least. So
I don't think anybody did, because of just how much you hear about how many scams there have been in the supplement industry and in the weight loss industry, and how everything claims to do stuff like this, but none of them ever pan out to be this effective. So I think that's why it's like, wait a second, this works? Are you serious? And it's easy to focus on that aspect without asking the questions like a responsible adult of actually handling it like a complex situation. The problem is that the shortage, we don't have time to take our time with it. We got to control the problem right now, right? We got to put out the fire right now, instead of being able to actually explore it.
And so I just think it's really crazy as a society where we choose to lean in terms of the information we share. Like, why isn't this other piece of the puzzle that is so important? But realistically, what advice would you give to non-diabetics struggling to lose weight, or debating whether or not they should take Ozempic if they really want to actually start this process, but they can't get the drug, but still want to lose weight in a realistic way?
See, it's a tough one to say that, because there's different levels of people who struggle with it.
Weight loss is trial and error for a lot of people, and making sure that you haven't exhausted all of your options. Then I would say, like, even speaking to those with type 2 diabetes and those who are overweight or obese, whether or not you're going on this drug, not still making sure you're moving your body, like taking it back to the basics, because this is, again, going to help with maintenance. And there can be a lot of people that feel like they've exhausted their options, but in the case that you feel like you haven't, I'd say that's my advice.
Oh yeah, all trial and error. The only way you lose is if you quit trying. And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Fitness Stuff for Normal People.
As always, you know where to find us, fs.pod on Instagram and TikTok, and Fitness Stuff for Normal People on YouTube. For more evidence-based content from Tony and I, make sure to check out our research review, available on Fitness Stuff Premium every Friday, linked in the show notes below.
And we hope this made your Monday suck a little bit less and the fitness industry a little bit more bearable. We'll see you guys next week. Goddamn beautiful.